live on Twitch, on YouTube. Damn it. Chat window decided to pop in and anchor itself somewhere. Hello, welcome to Derps Talk About Games. I'm your co-host, Bango.
And I am your co-host, Buddy.
And today we're going to talk about the Immortal Jeff. But before we do that, why don't you tell the folks at home what it is we do on this podcast?
On this podcast, we talk about magic. Okay, we talk about Magic the Gathering. We're just a magic podcast at this point. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. On this podcast, we talk about games, and one of those games is Magic the Gathering. We've been playing a lot of it. We played a little bit of Commander at your house yesterday. We played Commander a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and at that game, we sort of hypothesized a game mode that we titled the Immortal Jeff. What would you say is sort of the inciting incident for thinking about the Immortal Jeff? What was your first kind of thought there?
So just to be clear, Jeff is in Malcolm Chaotician. It's my signature commander is maybe the way to put it. It's my signature. It's a deck that I like to play, but it's all dumb stuff. It's not like, it doesn't really have a win con. And the thought there was that Jeff adds a fun random element to the game, but at least from my perspective, like actually piloting Jeff is its own kind of like ball of wax. And so like getting the Jeff effects, or at least having the opportunity to participate in the Jeff effects without having to play like pilot Jeff directly might be an interesting thing. And also like throwing that randomness into some of our other games, especially because sometimes I was thinking about this yesterday, right? Like Josh kind of ran away with the game that he played Unit in, and it's like games where like maybe we don't want to be careful about matching power about the decks. I think that's the thing we're gonna have to start doing soon, is like making sure we're playing the appropriate decks into appropriate decks. Um Jeff kind of smooths that curve over because he adds enough randomness that you can keep things from going too
Yeah,
off
so
the
the
rails.
idea for the Immortal Jeff format would just be that I guess it would be outside of play, or would it be interactable with at all?
So I think this is what we're doing on this
Yeah,
podcast, right? Like, so my initial thought would be something like Jeff, like the most basic version is you don't need the rest of the deck, you just need Ian Malcolm, right?
right.
And he is always in play and you can't target him. And basically just whenever somebody draws their second card on the turn, it puts a card on, it does the normal Jeff effect. And like this is like the very most basic version of it, right? Is like Jeff's effects happen and you can cast a spell out from under Jeff on your turn like you normally can. And he just sits outside of targetability and like really doesn't need to be Jeff, but like he's the guy who does the mechanics. So that's what I would use.
Yeah, like I'm tempted to say that there is an hexproof indestructible Jeff that is under control of a phantom fifth player who has no other whatever, so you can never target it, right? And it would never get caught up in a board wipe, but technically even indestructible would get caught up in certain board wipes,
Yeah.
right? Like a -X board wipe would catch Jeff or something. And you could also do stuff like under those kinds of rules, each player sacrifices a creature. Well, if you're putting Jeff under a fifth player, it's like all of that stuff kind of like creates these complicated edge cases. But I think my perfect version of the Immortal Jeff probably just means that that rule is just an active rule at all times for the purposes of the the game of Commander that we're playing.
Yeah, and I've got a couple different variations in my head too. Like, I could see something like there is this invisible fifth player that like doesn't do anything except for control Jeff, and if Jeff gets like wiped, like if Jeff gets wiped in some way, like maybe you add this as like a level of complexity, right? It's like if you figure out a way to wipe Jeff either with like a uh what's the one that uh lifts everybody up, I can see it in my head. It's the one that you overload it and it brings everything back to your hand. Cyclonic Rift, that's what I'm
It's
thinking
like
of.
Cyclonic Rift. I know what you
Yeah,
mean. Yeah.
yeah, like anytime you do something like the Jeff player has infinite mana, and so every time Jeff dies on like the top of the round, he recasts Jeff, and like or maybe in between each like the idea being that like if you want to allow Jeff some interactability, you can like wipe Jeff so that you pull the power that's under it. Like because if you kill Jeff, all the cards exiled under him are no longer available to cast, right? So I could see a version where you can kill Jeff, but he'll come back, but it will wipe the pile that's currently under him, thus preventing somebody else from casting something that's under Jeff. But I think that's like these are like like I had in my mind like a cascading set of like increasingly complicated ways to do this, right? Like I also think it'd be fun that like every time Jeff triggers on another player, he triggers on himself as well, so that you can put Jeff cards under Jeff. That way, if you want to in the middle of the game, like cast something out of the because the Jeff deck is like mostly nonsense, right? So like if you want like to cast Possibility Storm out from under Jeff, you put the opportunity there by having uh Ian Malcolm, like whenever somebody else triggers Ian Malcolm triggers under himself and puts a card under himself that somebody else is able to cast, that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty interesting. I wasn't thinking about it in those terms, but I actually think I like the idea of the Ian Malcolm deck. I guess you would technically have to. The other thing I was thinking about for Ian Malcolm is what if you house ruled lands to work on Ian Malcolm? Right now, technically, lands don't work on Ian Malcolm. You have to cast the cards out from Ian Malcolm, but you could play them. Um, which sort of means if somebody hits a land, that's a dead draw. But I actually think that there is a use case that I could make the case for, which is like you want to give people the ability to smooth out their land drops with Ian Malcolm cards. So like if I'm gonna miss my fucking land drop and there is an island in under Ian Malcolm, well at least I can pull the island. Do you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Otherwise I think what you would have to do is you would have to make the Jeff deck all spells, or like you would just do non-land, right? You would filter from the top of the deck until you hit a non-land and throw it under.
Yeah, I'm of two minds, but like from like an administratability purpose, right? I don't want to have to
Yeah.
like pull the lands out from Jeff and then put them back in. My thought there was also that like you could leave the lands in there as kind of like a dead draw, right? Like like if Ian flips one of his cards and it's a land, it doesn't do anything, but that's fine because it's just kind of like smoothing out the randomness. You're not guaranteed to get one of these like stupid effects if you if you flip an Ian card, right? Like um if we were doing something that was more akin to like what's the treasure format called?
Treasure vaults.
Yeah, treasure. If you want to do something similar to Treasure Vault where you pay 3 and flip a card or whatever, I think that could be
Right.
fun too, but at that point you would have to like, flip until you hit a non-land to make it
Mhm.
to make it worth it. I also think that um you'd also probably want to cost slightly different because most of the Ian cards are a little bit more expensive, and you could get some crazy powerful effects if you flip 4 3 and like you flip into like a Possibility Storm or a Knowledge Pool or a Hive Mind, right? Like most of the treasure vault cards are like something like Mana Rocks, right? So
Yeah. So we can talk about Treasure Vault in a bit, but just as a little bit of a preview, the idea of Treasure Vault is that there is a deck of artifacts, which is the Treasure Vault, and at any time any player can pay 3 generic mana and pull from the Treasure Vault. There are a couple of duds in there, which are like bad cards that will suck to pull. There's a couple of really monster hits, like cool big artifacts that have big splashing effects, but most of the Treasure Vault are 3 mana rocks, right? 3 mana rocks of just various varieties, because mostly 3 mana rocks are kind of unplayable, is what most people kind of consider. And so the idea that like if you just kind of have a dead 3 mana on your turn, you can cast an artifact out of the treasure vault adds that like little extra sort of flavor of randomness that I think the Immortal Jeff is also sort of getting after. Yeah, I think I probably agree with you. The fact that you have to cast it is nice. Because it means that if somebody flips a hive mind on turn 2 or 3 or something like that, you can like build into it in a way. Like you see it ahead of time, you know that it's under there, and you go, okay, when the going gets tough, I'm going to rip the hive mind kind of thing. I also think that the trigger on Jeff is interesting because it's not all the time that you're going to be able to hit
yeah,
2 cards a turn, right? I think most decks are good at drawing twice in a turn at a certain point, but not all of them. And it is going to mean that, in a weird way, it kind of means that like the decks that fly ahead the furthest are the ones that are going to be putting more stuff under Ian Malcolm, which is probably better overall. Um, so yeah.
yep, I agree with that 100%. Um, like I also feel like my thought for like the most absurd version of this would be something um uh like Ian essentially plays like the Judge Tower on his own, which is like you could do a version where the Jeff player is automated, right? Or like, if we wanted to, we could, have somebody run this while they're watching the other four people actually play the game, which is like, you have infinite mana, you must do everything like it must do everything possible on his turn. So it's like, Jeff draws a perplexing chimera and will cast the perplexing chimera and will swap it for the first spell that he sees, right? Like um that would be like the most extreme version of this, but I also think that would get way out of that. I think is too far afield to be like fun outside of like, like a YouTube video essentially, right? Like a meme video. Because a lot of my thoughts around this are shaped by watching like people play these weird formats of like Card Market or something, right? Where they do these joke episodes that are fun, but like they're doing it once and they're probably never doing it again type of deal, or doing it once a year at most. And I think that that's kind of got to be the thing here, is like either has to be like a very once in a while thing, or it has to be like moderate enough that like people would be willing to play it every once in a while without like, feeling like, oh, well, like Jeff already has this kind of property where it's like, oh, we're playing a Jeff game. Who the fuck knows what's gonna happen, right? Like, and like, my for better or for worse, my game plan is probably not going to survive because like the Jeff deck has some win stuff in it, but doesn't really try and win. He tries to just like cause chaos on the board. Um, and at some level, I get why that's aggravating, right? It's like I'm trying to do my thing, and this fucking like deck that isn't going to win is just like making it so I can't do the things I want to do.
It's
Uh,
slowing everybody down, it's getting in the way, it's putting up a bunch of obstacles, that kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and like not in a way that's like obviously like Augustin, which is a deck I played yesterday, right? Like yes, he slows everything down, but he does have like things that he wants to do, which is like dig for like I have a couple of alt win cons in there, and it's a very slow deck, but it like is trying to do that. Um, excuse me. Unlike Jeff, who is like might hand somebody else the win just because like some effect that does random stuff handed somebody else the win, which can be incredibly frustrating if you're up and ahead, right? Like there's a reason that I don't play Jeff every time we play Magic, because
Yeah.
it's it's it I know that like sometimes it's just kind of like oh, I got a really banger hand on my favorite deck, and now this little shit just like made it so every time I try and cast something, right, like like that one game we played with Possibility Storm where Josh was playing, I think it was his Pirates Artifact deck, right, and it's just like I can't fucking do anything because I keep having to roll through my cards, right, like, and like
Yeah, in a certain sense, I want to tell people to like shut the fuck up and like have fun. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same impulse I have when people complain about mills, right? Like the in a weird way, I wonder if this is like related. You know how I express this thing about how like RNG is good for strategy games because responding to randomness is an important like tactical acumen thing that
sure,
a strategist has to be able to account for. I wonder if it's something sort of akin to that, right? Where like you play a turn and you go, "Ooh, great! My next turn, I drew some really good stuff. Now I'm finally going to be able to, like play really powerful things or whatever, right?" And I do recognize how frustrating that can be, sort of on the other side of things. But like when you milled out half my deck, I didn't even glance at the graveyard. I was just like, those cards are dead to me. But I would still get draws. How many? Who knows? We'll see. We're just gonna keep drawing until we lose, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just like a mindset thing. Yeah, I love the idea of playing with extra rules. I have actually
mm,
come more and more in love with this over time, specifically rules like the Immortal Jeff. In fact, I think the way that I probably want to do this is create a number of alternate rule sets and roll a die to decide which one is being used for. Because part of it is that you want to play the alternate rules without an understanding of what one you're walking into, right? If you know you're going to play into a Jeff deck, or you're going to play into Immortal Jeff, hypothetically it would make you think twice about the deck that you're playing, right? Like, oh, maybe I don't want to play this deck which has a lot of draw, or I know that the Jeff effect pulling stuff is going to put really good powerful creatures under Jeff that people are going to be able to play against me, or just like any of those kinds of things. Or you would be somebody who goes, my deck is a very sort of parasitic, which I don't mean negatively, just that all of the mechanics feed into themselves, right? My deck is a very parasitic deck, right? So for instance, I'm making a Venture into the Dungeon deck, right, which is a weird, nobody understands this mechanic. That deck would be good to play into Jeff, because when you pull Venture into the Dungeon cards into the Venture into the Dungeon, into Jeff, everybody, it's like, okay, well, what, I'm gonna venture into the dungeon fucking once? Well, no, you need a whole package in order to make that deck kind of work,
Right.
sort of. Versus something like Big Slammas, which just has singular huge creatures that come in and do a thing that is really powerful and sort of effective, right? Like, that's kind of a bad deck to play into Jeff. But what you want to do is you want to create a world where people are choosing their decks agnostic of that, and they go whatever, and then you roll a d6, and whatever the result is, oh, this time we're playing Immortal Jeff, this time we're playing Treasure Vault. Another one that I mentioned was Plane Chase. Have you ever played Plane Chase before?
I haven't, but again, I watched a card market video where they had like a bunch of user submitted planes for plane chase, and that seems super fun. Uh
I love Plane Chase. I played a bunch of Plane Chase in college, but I this is like one of my great regrets, to be honest with you, because it came out right when we were in college. I think it came out in 2011, and I thought I was being very cheeky because I didn't want to buy it. It was pretty expensive, and so I convinced a friend of ours to buy it. And then we played all of the time, and I was like, great, I get to do all this fun stuff for free, kind of thing. And then college ended, and he took all the Plane Chase cards, and I was like, I actually kind of wish. And now Plane Chase is kind of expensive. It's like $300 to get like the anthology edition. That has like everything, because it's 10 years old at this point, and kind of a collector's item. And I was like, ah, damn it! I kind of wish I could sit down and play Plane Chase. Um, but yeah, I
yeah.
was thinking about that as sort of an alternate version of it, just to explain the rules. Plane Chase basically says that everybody gets, I think everybody gets both decks, right? You have a planar deck, and you have a, sort of your normal deck. And the idea is, there is a six-sided die. And let's say when you roll a one, something happens. When you roll a six, something happens. Technically, one face is sort of a phenomenon, and the other face is you planeswalk, right? The idea is the first person flips their first plane, and that's just like a board state that is true for the duration of the game. So for instance, if I just look up a random plane chase card, plane chase card, can I find an image? So the very first one, called Daya, which I've never heard before, is the Plane of Capenna. Creature spells cast from your hand have Blitz 3, which means you can cast a creature for 3 mana. It comes in, it gains haste, and it dies at the end of turn, right? So it just puts a rule on the board that is like interesting or fun or unique to kind of interact with. And then the other one is, whenever chaos ensues, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Chaos ensues is sort of like when you roll a one. This is when you roll chaos on sort of like the planar die. And I feel like Plane Chase would be like a perfect version of this kind of random thing that that we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. That
It's
makes that.
also interesting because it looks like you build your own planes, which is sort of neat.
What are you looking at for this? Sorry.
I'm just looking at it says each player enters the game with a regular deck and a planar deck, which features 10 or more
Hmm.
plane or phenomenon cards. So I think the way you would do it is, like, at the beginning of the game, you would draft planes or something, and you would try and get planes that are powerful for you. Because the other thing is, during your turn, you can roll the planar die whenever you could cast a sorcery. The first roll is free, and then every roll after that costs one more generic mana. So you can roll the planar die, then spend one, roll the planar die, spend two, roll the planar die,
Hmm.
spend three, roll the planar die, right? And you can kind of like force it or whatever. Um, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Are you looking up planes right now?
Sorry, I'm looking up. I found an Etsy store that sells proxies um for like $35 too. It seems like I'm just trying to figure out like if it's exactly right. Um,
Oh.
you can get it foil for 40. So uh, uh, but yeah, sorry. But yeah, I like I said, I haven't really seen many of the real planes. I've just seen these like meme planes from like these fun things. But I also think it'd be fun to do like meme planes too, right? Like to do like
Yeah.
fake plane chase cards. That would be like a fun format where like like we over time just like build our own set of like dumb planes and throw them into a thing. But I also don't know like how uh how I don't know how much staying power. Like I feel like a lot of these things be like once or twice, right? Like I feel like when I play command, like this is like the risk of the kind of spin-off format is like I think you can only play it so much before it gets tired, if that makes sense, right? Like you have to only play like we can only play plane chase like once per day at most, I think, or something like that, right? Or like or like have a day where we do it, but like I think most of the time we still be playing standard commander because otherwise it starts warping the meta, right? Like like our pod is warping to our play styles, right? Like there's the thing that's going to happen, right? Like um just after playing for a while. And so if we play these weird formats too much, then we're gonna start playing to them. I think we'll get sick of them, right? Like I think Immortal Jeff would be fun every once in a while, but I don't think that we could play Immortal Jeff every every time we play Magic. Like I feel like I could do like one or two games of Immortal Jeff, depending on how hard. Like one game of Immortal Jeff where Jeff has a big impact on the game, and it's like okay, time to not play Immortal Jeff for like a little
Yeah, in
while.
a certain sense, that's why I like the die, because the
Yeah,
die means you could
sure.
you could flip through a bunch of different formats, and you can't do that thing where you let it affect your meta, right? Because if the die have, so the other one we haven't talked about is Treasure Vault, which I mentioned before, and I mentioned obviously the rules for it. The thing I love about Treasure Vault is it gives you this ability to do something sort of dumb, like a bad thing to do on your turn, which is to say, get a mana rock, right? Most decks on turn, whatever, spending 3 mana for a mana rock is a bad turn. But for plenty of reasons in a commander game, you just end up with 3 mana and you wish you could do something with it, right? And ripping 3 mana into sort of an infinite list of, not infinite, technically, whatever, but um uh to this random sort of pile is like kind of good for you. And a lot of the times it's just going to end up with you getting a little bit of ramp, right? A little bit of minor expensive ramp that'll stick around until somebody casts fucking farewell or something kind of along those lines. And then every once in a while, I think the idea for Treasure Vault is it's not a very large deck, that it's like 30 cards or something. I think the way I would probably do it is you would do 30 cards, you would have 3 big slammas, right? Just like really crazy high end rolls. That would be 10% of the time. Somebody could get one of those. You would have the meat of it, which is maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think of this in units of 3. Um, Maybe 21 just of the generic kind of mana rocks that typically have some value and upside to them, right? And then you would have maybe 6 kind of off like dud cards. Dud cards that are interesting are things like what's the one that you can't cast creature spells? Steel Golem. It's like an
Yeah,
artifact creature. It's stuff like that, right? Where
yeah,
it's
Rust
like,
Golem
oh
or
my
like
god.
or like Silent Arbiter. Like the basically the weird stacks pieces I have in Stiltskin, right? Like that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
You do Cloudstone Curio. Do you know Cloudstone Curio?
No.
9 mana. It's a wild card. It is a 9 mana card, I think, that I think I have one. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry. That's not what I'm talking about. What's the thing that I'm talking about? There's one, it literally is like a 9 mana artifact that says counter the first spell each player casts each turn or something. Um,
Uh
and it's like that kind of stuff would just be, that would be brutal. You probably wouldn't want to put that in there, honestly, thinking about it,
yeah.
but whatever.
Yeah, I say that because that's like a universal effect, right? Like you want to you want to be like gambling for good things, right? Or like you want to be gambling for like things that affect you as a player. You don't want something that like hits the board and like makes everybody miserable, right? At that point, you're just you're just playing kind of like Immortal stacks, right? Which is like like Winter Warp, ho ho ho, right? Like
Yeah,
I
there was
wouldn't.
a version of this I was considering that was so I obviously made my swords tribal deck. And I was thinking a version of Treasure Vault that is swords tribal, which is, all of the sword of X and
Mm,
Y's. But like most people aren't going to have decks that are built around them or even built around equipment in the first place. And so that makes for sort of an interesting kind of thing of like, oh, I'm playing Ian Malcolm, but whatever. I'll spend 3 mana. I pick up a sword. Oh, it's a sword of light and shadow, and that'll give me prot white. And now all of a sudden, Ian can't be swords to plowshare. That's pretty good, right? Like those kinds of effects. I could also see a version of Treasure Vault, um, which could be sort of like fun and interesting. Um, uh, there are a couple of other these sorts of formats that have come out over the years. There's one that came out in Thunder Junction. You know about the bounty cards? Have you heard about these?
I think I might have some of them, some sitting around somewhere. But yeah, it's like it's what I actually don't remember the exact mechanics. But remember like holding the cards because they have a couple of like Thunder Junction pre-con type things.
Yeah, there is I also had a Thunder Junction precon, which is why I was thinking about it. And I have a couple of the cards, but like I think there are 12 in total. I think I have like 3 or something. But the idea is you take 6 of these cards, you put them in a pile, right? At the start of the third turn in the game, the first player flips the top bounty, and it's like a guy with a condition or something like that, and the condition is going to be one of a number of things that you can kind of like match. So for instance, the example is at the beginning of your end skept, if you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand this turn, you collect your reward, right? And the idea is over time, each person who doesn't collect the bounty, it gets even better, right? So if you do it immediately, you get a treasure token. If you do it next, you get 2 treasure tokens. If you do it on the third turn, you get 2 treasure tokens, and you draw a card. And then if you max out the bounty, which is after a full turn rotation, you create 2 treasure tokens and draw a card. And I was thinking about bounties would be another good example of just like a thing you can add to kind of like spice up kind of
Mm.
the nature of a game.
You know what? I realized as you were saying that it's not bounties that I have cards from. I think Arch Nemesis cards, uh, which is
Oh,
another
arch enemy cards. Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
which is another weird format. But like you can't just do that on a whim. I don't think that would be like a wild thing to it's like fucking Mario Party mechanics, right? It's roll into Arch Nemesis like okay, I guess we're playing 1v3 now, right? Like
Yeah, it's also the kind of thing where there are certain decks that would completely collapse as archenemy. Typically when you play archenemy, you are building for the archenemy deck.
you're right.
The archenemy deck basically says at the beginning of the archenemy's turn, the archenemy is 3v1, so you have 3 normal players who are pretty unaffected by things, right? Then you have an archenemy. And the archenemy has a special deck, and on the beginning of the archenemy's upkeep, they cast a spell from the archenemy deck for free, and the spell is almost always just like a big powerful kind of boss effect. So for instance, there's one that's just like destroy all creatures your opponents control, right? So you can just offensively board wipe people, you can draw a bunch of cards and gain a bunch of life, like all of that kind of stuff to try and balance out the 3v1ness of it. I have played archenemy. I again played archenemy in college, but the thing about playing archenemy was you kind of needed to build a deck for it. Like to be the archenemy,
Mm,
you have to play a deck that is walking into sort of a 3v1 kind of format. It's the sort of thing where it's like you can imagine certain decks as archenemy would just run away with the game. Like Josh's Indoraptor deck, I actually think would
yeah,
be brutal as the archenemy, just because of the way that deck works, versus something like Bumbleflower maybe would be a good example.
yeah.
Would
Anything
have a
that's group
harder
huggy.
time. Yeah, because like Bumbleflower is trying to like make deals out of things, or like any kind of like a goad deck or something like that, which just would never even be able to sort of
Yeah,
make it work.
yeah. No, that makes sense because like I've remarked that like Stiltskin doesn't work in Star because you can't really make you can't really negotiate over anything, right? Like you just have to hand stuff to your opponents. Like 'cause anything that wants to do any politicking doesn't work in any of the formats where you have like in Star or any of these formats where you have to find enemies like Emperor
Yep.
But I do think these kind of these alternate rule sets work better than the things we've tried with like Emperor. Not because I disliked Emperor, just because like I just don't think like the rules interactions there are like Emperor in particular were so weird and wonky. It's like the first game we played where I just like stole people's commanders with the Sauron, like the Sauron deck and gave them to you guys. It's like, well, I guess the enemy team doesn't get their commanders ever,
Yep.
right? Like, it's like the rules collisions there are too easy to screw up, I think.
Yeah, my belief is that 2v2v2 is correct to do with 6 people. You have to the thing that Emperor proved to me is you have to find a way to get more people taking turns simultaneously when you're up to 6 people,
Mm.
because otherwise the game is not moving fast enough, right? And so I think two-headed giant is probably correct there. I was also thinking
Ooh,
about that. Like, I think that that could be any sort of rules. You do two-headed giant, which I guess wouldn't work with 5 people. But having that be kind of one of the rules on the list, I think would be pretty sweet.
I think what you want, and this is interesting because we're talking more about the meta game than we are about the specific Jeff rules, but I guess that's fine because like Jeff, there's only so much you can do with the Jeff rules. But I
Yeah.
think you'd want to roll like a D8, 10, 12 maybe, and like have like 3 slots B, nothing happens, right? Like, it's just a
Oh,
normal game,
interesting. Okay.
right? Like that, like you start the day off, you play a normal game of Commander, and then you roll the die, and then like 30% of the time it's just normal Commander type of deal, right?
Uh,
Um, but I was thinking one of the other ones we could throw in there is like 15-minute timers, right? Like we could do the chess clock, but like only for this mode, right? That way it's not like that way, it doesn't feel like we're fucking targeting Josh for taking too long with his turns or whatever, right? Like it's just like, no, this is not like we think people are playing to do. This is just like a thing we want to do for fun. Like you have to act fast because otherwise you're gonna run out of time. And it's only an occasional thing. I think that'd be fun too, right? And like 50 minutes, I think is right there because most of your decks aren't fast enough to like win that quickly. So it's you kind of have to like be fast and like make inoptimal plays as quickly as possible. Um, I think that could be interesting. Uh,
yeah, is the idea that you lose when you hit zero, like you hit zero on your chess clock, you lose, you're out?
I think for the purposes of this mode, then yes.
Yeah.
Like this is like this game will last no more than an hour. Go right, like and with the understanding that
Yeah.
because we're playing a fun mode, it's not as big it's not as big a deal, right? Like, um, uh, which I think would be super. Uh, I think that are you writing these down somewhere? Is that why?
I'm writing some of these out. I'm trying to think of just like if I were to put all of this onto a list right now, what would it sort of look? And uh I so far so what I have is 1, 2, 3 are normal games. 4 is Immortal Jeff. 5 is a chess clock. 6 is a treasure vault with mana rocks. 7 is a treasure vault with swords. 8 would be plane chase. What else have we talked about?
Bounties maybe.
Bounties. Bounties honestly kind of sucks a little bit. I'm
Okay.
not sure I would really want to play with bounties, but I'll put it on the list. And then two-headed giant was the other one. So that's 10, right? If we wanted a list of 10 different sort of like mini formats that you could sort of like play into. The only thing is that two-headed giant would require a little bit of extra kind of coordination basically, which is that any of these you could play with 5 people, for instance, without any trouble. But as soon as you do two-headed giant, that has to be a 4-player game, or I guess 6, or I guess you could do 5, and somebody could choose two, like one person could pilot 2 decks at the same time or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would say like if you have a number of players, if you hit two-headed giant, that's either another blank spot or reroll the die or something, right? Or like
Yeah.
dealer's choice or something, right? Like actually that would be a fun one, winner's choice, right? Like whoever won the last game gets to choose the
Oh
form of.
my god, that would be fun, actually. It's like you know what you would do. We're making this so complicated, but you know
Sure.
what, man? It's my fucking podcast. I can do what I want. Okay, I think what I would say is the winner of the game gets to choose what the blank faces refer to. So,
Ooh.
for instance, if 1, 2, and 3 are normal games, okay, and I win a game of Commander, I can go. You know what I really want to play next game? plane chase, and 1, 2, and 3 then become plane chase. So there is now, instead of a 10% chance to roll plane chase, there's a 40% chance to roll plane chase, but you would still, you could still sort of like fuck it up, which I know complicates things to a degree that nobody but us will appreciate. But I think that's awesome. I think
Yeah.
that's an amazing, like, it would make me want to, not that I don't fight for wins now, but it would make me really want to fight for a win so that I could play my like pet format.
Yeah, I wonder if like just thinking, are there other weird formats that we could throw into this? Like, do we have thoughts for like other dumb things to do?
I was thinking about so when I was thinking about this podcast, I was thinking about what other commanders specifically um I could consider to be on sort of Jeff's level. One of them, you'll be surprised to learn, was Takesha. What if all creatures had the rule tap surveil 1? Which I was thinking about in the car ride home yesterday because you copied my
Yeah,
guy to get that rule. And it's just kind of like, huh. I wonder if that was just like an option that everybody had on offer at all times. They could tap a creature, surveil sort of 1, outside of like the fact that Takesha builds a whole deck around that kind of idea. What would that do? What like what would that do to things? Uh
I
I'm sorry, go for it.
I would say like I think that's I think it's an interesting thought. Is the thing I would worry about is with any of these formats is like, is there a deck that would um that would by chance just be too powerful with these rules, right? Like I think if we ran a lot of artifact affinity decks, then Treasure Vault might be dangerous, right? Like I am a little wary of Swords Tribal Treasure Vault because we run a number of equipment decks, right? And
Yeah,
like
right. Like, what if somebody is playing the equipment deck and they get Swords Tribal? They go, "Oh, I get to just cast these swords whoop, whoop, whoop,
yeah,
off the rip," kind of thing. Yeah, I do get that.
we have a lot of graveyard recursion decks in the pod, right? Like Immortal Takesia is like, you know, just like, delicious for any of the graveyard recursion decks, right? Which honestly, pushing through to the other side, that actually might be fine with our pod because I think at this point everybody has at least one. Um, and like I think like I don't like sh- sh- uh Shark Shredder is going to be mine, right? Like I think everybody has at least one graveyard recursion deck, so it might be okay because like it's like okay, well maybe everybody can take advantage of the surveil thing, but that would be the thing I'd be worried about though. Is like would
Yeah,
Immortal
in a certain sense, I kind of think that's part of the fun in a way, which is to say that like you can like play towards it, but you can't guarantee it because it's the roll of a die. Like, okay, let's pretend that we're sitting down at your table. We have played our first game of Commander. I what? And I go, oh, I want to play Immortal Takesia, right? How cool, how fun. Well, I guess the best deck for me to play would be Takesia, but let's just pretend I'm not playing Takesia. I'm playing that Quintorius deck, right? Which obviously wants cards in my graveyard so that I can pull them out of the graveyard and get spirits off of Quintorius. Now those spirits can tap for 1. Super good, right? So I go, okay, I'm going to play Quintorius, and I select that the 3 blank faces are now going to roll for an Immortal Takesia on the thing. And then I roll, and we get bounties. Oh, damn it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and I think that's part of how it works. And I also think that we could do the opposite thing, which is like, okay, let's say we do swords and Josh is running cloud, but we don't know. And then so we're all running non-equipment decks and Josh is running cloud, his equipment deck. And then all of a sudden we go, oh boy, Josh is the arch enemy from turn 1,
Yeah, that's
right? Like
fair.
we just have to go like beat his face in, and we can maybe get like we can maybe get kind of like the win that way or something. I think that's probably the most interesting sort of like way to kind of like go about it. There's a part of me that's tempted to say like maybe you roll the die and then choose a deck, right? Like you try and play into, you bring a big variety of decks or something and you try and play into whatever the new format be. Oh, if the format is going to be Treasure Vault or something, I am going to try and maximize that by playing a deck that is artifact synergy, or maybe it's artifact hate. Who cares, right? Like whatever. Um, but I think that it's actually better to force people to commit to decks before the die is rolled, because it enforces that nobody is going to kind of like get a crazy runaway sort of experience without some friction to that.
Yeah, no, I think that makes. I think this could be like if you say you're playing Takesha, or you're putting Takesha on the other faces, right? It's like I think everybody picks their graveyard deck, and
Yeah.
as long as it's not like I think we've got a couple of equipment decks in the pile in the pod, right? It's like as long as that is like only one person has the equipment deck, and so they're uh they're at an advantage. I think it's fine. I actually think an interesting thing to put on the die, on maybe on like if we're rolling a d12 on the 12, is re-roll the die, and then everybody can repick their decks after they like you could do the post pick every once in a while if you make that like one of the faces. It's just kind of like a meta variant. Um but I also think that plainly, if we're doing Immortal Takesha and Immortal Jeff, I can't play Jeff during an Immortal Jeff game, and you can't play Takesha during an Immortal
Yeah,
Takesha game.
exactly. That would be too insane, right? Like
Yeah,
playing Takesha during Immortal Takesha would be like the arch enemy of all arch enemies. The whole
yeah,
point of Takesha is you have to like set it up, and then you very carefully bring Takesha out, because she's such a the whole deck is built about, can you get Takesha on the board and protect her before everyone immediately burns, her out as sort of like your, kind of your engine. I think that's definitely like a fair. Are there other decks that you have on your mind that you think of as good or neat? Uh, I had one other format that I was thinking about pitching, actually.
go for it.
Um, I was thinking about pitching a format that I would call Paradigm, which is, there are the 5 Paradigm cards from Strixhaven, one of which is Improvisation Capstone, which you used very effectively in Jeff a couple of weeks ago. And I was thinking, okay, what if you did Treasure Vault, but for big splashy sorceries that are castable very late in the game, and you say that those cards have Paradigm. So essentially you'd go, there's a deck in the center of the table. For 7 generic mana, you cast the top card from that deck, and that card is going to be a big, huge sorcery effect. That it would have all 5 of the Paradigm cards from Strixhaven in there, just for posterity. But then you would probably include an extra 25 cards or something for a deck of 30, or something like that, of just like other big similar effects that would also be cool paradigms. So for instance, one of them I was thinking about was Siphon Mind. Siphon Mind is a 4 mana sorcery that says each of your opponents discards a card. You draw a card for each card discarded this way, right? Imagine you cast Siphon Mind every turn for the rest of the game, but you have to pay 7 mana for it, which is a huge effect, right? You could have other effects like I'm forgetting what the card is. It's like Risen Dead, or Rise from the Dead, or something. It's just the most generic take. A Zombify is basically what I'm thinking, right? 4 mana, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Boom, it's in play, right? You could do ramp spells. You could do explosive vegetation, right? 7 mana every turn. You're getting 2 basics out of the library, right? It's like it would sort of be like Treasure Vault, but for big splashy sorcery effects that are not quite, like none of them would be like game ending, right? But it would just be neat to have a thing where at the beginning of your first main phase you auto cast a spell. And in my mind I was thinking 4 mana spells is perfect for this, right? Like you could find a good strong 4 mana sorcery. Zombify is 4 mana. Siphon. It's part of why I was thinking about them as the first sort of set of them. um and they do generically powerful things that maybe you wouldn't be able to keep, take advantage of, but maybe you would, right? Another one could be like Overrun, right? Where you give all of your creatures +3/+3 and trample. And all of a sudden, oh, well, I'm overrunning every single turn, so I just need to build a big board. And everybody else has to reduce my board as much as possible. Like that, all of that kind of stuff. What would you think about Paradigm as a form?
I would have to think about like the thing that like pings me the most as being like a less particular, like less attractive to me is that if it's a 7 mana cast, then it means it's only like taking effect relatively late into the game, right? Um, and I also think the problem is like the thing with Treasure Vault is that because they're mostly mana rocks, it's not an automatic do, right? Like
Yeah.
this is like the problem with Momir Vig, right? Not the problem, but like why Momir Vig turned into the format that it did, right? Is because like you don't actually play the cards. You don't build a deck and like maybe Momir Vig. You build a deck of all lands and you play Momir Vig, which is like what happened with the original version of the game that on Magic Online, right? I feel like the trap with or the issue with Paradigm is that as soon as you hit 7 mana, you are just casting off the top of that deck every time because all those effects are going to be like too good. You'd have to either make
Yeah.
some like real duds in there to make it a real risk, but I feel like the danger there is that it's a little too overwhelmingly good to be long term interesting. But I
Yeah,
think
see, the
the
part of me that is thinking about that is I think in general, it is better to spend 7 mana towards your deck's personal interests than it is to spend 7 mana to cast a 4 mana sorcery that repeats every. Like if you think about it for let's say for like Zombify. Spending 7 mana for a 4 mana effect that isn't even something your deck is built to be good for, and it's random. You don't know what you're sort of getting. That sure, if I'm just sitting on 7 mana and I run out of cards, it gives me a thing to do that can maybe kind of like bring the game back. But at the end of the day, I am probably trying to win by pushing my game plan, whatever my game plan has been for so far, right? So even for let's say improvisation capstone, which is probably the most powerful one, probably the most powerful one of these that you could kind of roll. Um, that takes like several turns to pay off. Uh, and I think that you just are in danger of getting run the fuck over if you are playing off the paradigm deck every turn. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, I think at the very least you do it as soon as when you hit 7. Like I think that you always want like just because that repeating effect, unless you are like imminently in danger of dying
Yeah.
immediately, that the it is value after a second, after a second go around, right?
Right.
Definitionally, right? And I think at that point it is too good to avoid. Like, I guess it would depend on what's in that deck, because
Yeah.
yes, Zombify isn't going to every deck isn't going to be universally tuned to Zombify, but like getting a card in your like a creature out of your graveyard is going to be good for like for free. It's going to be good for like 90% of decks. 90 maybe a little high, but like anything that runs creatures and like has some of them die is going to have a use for a Zombify, even if it's not like even if graveyard recursion isn't like the theme of your deck type of
Mhm.
deal, right? Like I think basically like I'm just thinking about my decks, right? Like, you know, Preston would like that. Rango would like that. Um uh Doran would like that, right? Like not because the graveyard recursion is particularly necessary to the deck, but it's like I can get something out of my grave, like um and maybe I'm focusing too much on Zombify because that's just kind of a generically good effect, but like uh it would depend on what the other cards in the deck would be. But
Yeah.
um
In a certain sense, the thing I was thinking about with Paradigm, the best case scenario for it are in long control games. Like so for instance, yesterday when you played Augustin, Paradigm would be excellent for the Augustin player, right? You are now in a position where okay, you have all of this removal, but you don't really have a win condition. Okay, well now I can just start casting off the Paradigm deck, and I'm gonna find Lava Axe
sure.
or something. And so as long as I have the board, like I can control the game well enough, right? I can just start sending Lava Axes every turn at whoever I fucking want, right? Or another one I was thinking about, which I thought was funny, was Maddening Cacophony, right? The one that mills or traumatizes actually the version I was thinking of, which is it just mills half your deck. Imagine you could just like every turn go half your deck, boom, like milled into the yard. Or another one that I thought was great, Windfall. Oh my god, how funny would it be to Paradigm into Windfall, and at the beginning of your turn, every turn, you force everybody to. Anyway, that was the other one of the other formats I was thinking about is Paradigm. The other thing I don't like about Paradigm is you couldn't put too much interaction in there. It would be very bad in Paradigm if you had board wipes. You never want to put any board wipes in Paradigm because you want your Paradigm cards to like advance the board states and close out games rather than
Paradigm on farewell. Just like
yeah. Well, there was a version of this that where I was thinking about some. So there's actually a version of Paradigm where I was thinking about you could also put in a couple of tutors. So you could put in like demonic tutor, you could put in gamble, you could put in kind of some of the expensive tutors, but with proxies. And I actually think that would be sweet because demonic tutor, 7 mana for demonic tutor is like insanely bad. Diabolic tutor, which is the 4 mana version of demonic tutor, nobody runs that card. That card is dog shit, right? Paying 7 mana and flipping demonic tutor really sucks. But in a certain game state, getting the best card in your deck every turn would be awesome. And so I was just thinking about some of that kind of stuff. But the things, yeah, like I said, you wouldn't want to put board wipes in there because they slow the game down. They don't accelerate the game. I definitely love the idea of putting burn in there, like Lava Axe is my sort of example, but I think you could do it with a number of different kind of burn spells, right? And then the the other thing I was thinking about was I don't know, I just had it on the top of my mind, but I can't remember. Whatever. That's
yeah,
Paradigm. That's what I was thinking. And I
yeah.
was like, maybe you could make an interesting thing out of that.
I think it's a neat idea. I think my biggest objection to it is that it would is that it's turn 7. It's a turn 7, mode,
Yeah.
right? Rather than an earlier mode. I thought of a couple of easy formats while we were sitting here.
Sure.
Immortal Miracle Man, or Molecule Man. Everybody
First
has.
card. Yeah.
Yeah, you cast for free. And then like the Jeffish version of this, which would be Wild Evocation, which is a card I have in Jeff. But Wild Evocation says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player reveals a card at random from his or her hand. If it's a land card, that player puts onto the battlefield. Otherwise, the player casts it without paying its mana cost if able, which is just like. And like the thing is, you have to you don't have the option to not do it. So I think that would be like those are two kind of like fun, especially for like speeding up games, right? I think it's some of the things that we run into is like occasionally we'll hit like towards the end of the day, it's like, oh, we're tired, our brains aren't running at 100%, and like the games are slower anyway, and then like you get into these kind of morasses, right, where we're trying to figure out what's happening. Whereas like something like a Wild Evocation or a Molecule Man would like just be like, this game is going to go fast because you get to cast something for free every turn, you know regardless, right? Like like if you draw into one of your um big slammas, or one of your big conditions, then and obviously, like on the scale of like fair to unfair, I think these are on kind of like the more unfair end because they are so luck based. And but like like if I played Wild Evocation and then Molecule Man and then Jeff like 3 in a row, I think I'd be like, okay, it's time for me to play some regular fucking Magic now, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like I don't think you've got that danger with the Treasure Vault and with either the versions of the Treasure Vault. Um
Yeah, something I was thinking about, but that I think would be awesome. Do you remember what's the wand that you used where you just target somebody's deck and you cast an instant or sorcery out of it for 4 mana?
it's there's Wand of Chaos and Rod of Wonder. One of them is roll a die and you get to do 3 of them. One of them is 1.
Okay, yeah, I guess I was thinking Chaos Wand. Um, a Chaos Wand format I think would be sweet, where if you just have 4 mana, you can hit somebody and be like, you're casting an instant or sorcery out of your deck. Let's see what happens, kind of thing. It's not that there would be a Chaos Wand. It's just that it would, it would
Everybody
be the
has like
thing.
an emblem that says pay for
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Pay for once a turn, target opponent exiles cards from the top of the deck until they hit instant or sorcery, then you cast it free, kind of thing. The other one I was thinking, and this was one that was mentioned on the Magic Mirror podcast, is the Hithlane rope one, which is the person in last place, I think, starts with a Hithlane rope, which is a kind of group huggy uh ramp piece. The idea is that the Hithlane rope, you tap it for, it's like 2 and tap it, and you get a basic from your library, and then it passes to the person to your right, so you can just ramp on turn 2 for sort of free, but you have to pass it away. And I think that like that would be that is like a low power but good fun format. It means people take really risky hands, because you can start with a 2-land hand and you're guaranteed to have at least one piece of solid ramp where you can go find whatever basic you need, sort of thing. um
So I think I don't like that as a format because it's too gameable. Like, if I'm playing AC into Hithlane Rope, I just don't ever activate Hithlane Rope when it comes to me, right? Like,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
right, because like there's value to me in denying everybody else the ramp because I know I've got a strong ramp deck, that kind of thing, right? Like,
Mm.
um, I think for a format, I would want one that's not easy for a player to turn off by just like refusing to participate, essentially. Um, but I like
How do
the
you feel
thought.
about formats that say, the monarch and take the initiative are the two that do this? They just start in play. Take the initiative is a unique dungeon that when they gain control of that dungeon and start working their way through it. The monarch is the version of that, which is the turn you draw a card. How do you feel about those two?
I think they could work, just because like it is not entirely within the control of the player that is the monarch or who has the initiative. As it's a thing you fight over, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I think monarch would be fun, but I also think that monarch would be like, I don't know. I feel like almost like if we came up with enough of these, I would have like a low power die and a high power die, right? And like you
Yeah.
put like monarch and initiative and maybe even Hithlane rope just because it's like there, but standard treasure vault, right? Like I think those could go on the low power die, and then like like molecule man, uh wildification, immortal Jeff goes on the high power die or something like that, like um
Yeah, because some of these, at the end of the day, one person drawing an extra card per turn is interesting, but like not that interesting, right? Like it creates a little bit of a moment, and it directs a little bit of the kind of competitive play, because now all of a sudden you have people sort of fighting for control over it so that you can draw that extra card. Somebody gets on board early, they're sending a Llanowar elves in one because they know they have a free attack and they can pick up a monarch, an easy sort of like monarch trigger. But I don't think that that really materially changes the game all that much. Whereas, like we said, paradigm or something like that, boy, when you get to turn 7 and now all of a sudden you can just start casting, random 4 drops for free, that does make make a big splash.
yeah,
I actually
absolutely.
wonder if the best way to do paradigm would be to do it with a bunch of junky cards that we've never even looked at or thought about before. Like if I were to just look in my own personal collection and find 30 random 4 mana sorceries, what would I get? What would I come away with? You know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like maybe you don't want it to be you're casting Windfall and Zombify. Maybe not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Zombify is fair
I think
because
Zombify would be okay, right? Like
yeah,
I think that's it would have to be 30 common sorceries, right? Like bulk common
yeah.
sorceries, right? Like you wouldn't want. I think you wouldn't want Windfall. I think you wouldn't want the actual paradigm cycle, right? Like I know that kind of like feels bad, but like like but um I think that having like 30 like bulk common sorceries would be interesting.
Yeah,
Um
like I think you would end up with cards that are like, 3 and a blue, return target creature to its owner's hand, draw a card. You know what I mean? Which like you would never play that. That's too slow, too bad, too expensive for your whatever. But like having one of those a turn is actually, would be kind of interesting. If I just look at scry, like can I scryfall this really
so
quickly?
it's funny. I immediately had this. It's slightly different than what you said, but it's called Churning Eddy, which is a card that I used to play. Return target creature and target land to their owner's hand for 4 mana. Like I think it'd be like a fun.
That's insane. Target land? Now you're locking one player. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be one player because like 4 lands hit the battlefield every turn. But
Yeah,
do you see what I'm saying?
no,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
but like, but I think at 7 mana for like at that point in the game, that marginal land isn't the end of the world. Um,
Yeah, if I do, let me just like look really quickly. We just went to Scryfall. I am searching standard legal 4-drop sorcery. Where's sorcery in this? 4-drop. It's gonna be type line. Sorceries. What?
I should put this card in Augustin. Churning Eddy. That would
There
be
are
like the most.
88. There are 88 cards. Ancestral Reminiscence. Draw 3 cards, discard a card. That's perfectly fair. Ancient Vendetta. Choose a card name. Search target opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for up to 4 cards with that name and exile them. That's kind of funny, but I don't think would be all that great. Aerith Rescue Mission. You create 3/1/1 colorless hero creature tokens, or tap up to 3 target creatures and put stun counters on them. Destroy target land creature or non-basic land, or deals damage equal to the number of lands you could to target creature. A lot of these are removal, it seems like.
What did you search for?
I just searched sorceries that are standard legal, um,
Okay, I
and
put in.
4 mana.
Okay, did you? I put in rarity common as well, and like draw a card for each bird in play.
That'd be pretty fucking funny, to be honest.
uh,
Ill-timed explosion is draw 2 cards, then you may discard 2 cards. When you do, it deals X damage to each creature, where X is the greatest mana value among cards discarded this way. That's just a sweet card. I've never seen this. I should do this like more often.
yeah. Call to the feast. Create 3/1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink. That would be like a generically like fun card to have on Paradigm. Right? It wouldn't be great, but it'd be like okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Midnight Mayhem says create 3/1/1 red gremlin creature tokens. Gremlins you control gain menace, lifelink, and haste until end of turn. So you make 3 lifelink, menace, hasty, gremlins just every single turn.
Drain the well. Destroy target land. You gain 2 life. It's just like, uh,
Honestly, some of these would be kind of insane. Planar engineering, sacrifice 2 lands and search your library for 4 basics, right? Like that's pretty good. You are
oh,
deeply like searching stuff out of the library. There's a bunch of these like 4 mana, get a bunch of lands.
could I modify Momir Vig to just like have the database of all common 4 mana, all the sorceries in there, and you could just like uh,
You would get a lot of board wipes is the problem, I think.
oh yeah.
Well,
Well,
maybe
no,
I
if
don't
you
know. I
limit it to
think
common, are there common board rights at CMC4?
yeah, are there common board wipes? I guess not. Yeah, if you limited it to common, I think you would maybe get there. Yeah, release the dogs is create 4/1/1 white dog creature tokens.
Actually, so it's something like excoriate, exile target tapped creature. I think that's like pretty good for like these kind of things because like 7 mana, that's not great, but it does make everybody think about what they're leaving tapped at the end of their turn, right?
Yep.
Like, um,
Yeah, now that I'm like looking through here, I don't know. I actually kind of love this. I think that there's a lot of fun stuff. I wonder what would happen if I put instants. Like, are there? You're gonna get some counter magic, I'm sure. But if
yeah.
I add is sorcery is instant, um, and then if I do rarity common,
Hush.
how crazy is that?
Destroy all enchantments every turn.
1 or 2 target creatures get +1, +2, +1.
Oh, you know what you would get a lot of with sorceries that have CMC 4 and are common? You get a lot of steel creature until the end of turn, it gains haste, right? Like there are a lot of
That's
the.
cool, honestly.
Yeah, I forgot how many of those are like at that cost.
Yeah, I mean, I think you maybe could Momir Vig to put this together.
Yeah.
I wonder how, I was cards that are legal in standard. Um but like I wonder if cuz I feel like you wouldn't want to do everything, but like maybe you could do, what if you did modern um pipeline source?
Mm.
Every every sorcery in modern. 165 total cards.
I don't know. I feel like some of the dumb old ones would also be fun, right? Like, like uh like Scorching Missile. Scorching Missile deals 4 damage to target player. It's just like a worse lava axe. Uh
Blood Tithe, each opponent loses 3 life, you gain life equal to the life lost this way. It's actually kind of sweet.
Step right up. Open 2 attractions. That would be a fucking wild card. It's like uh,
Honestly, this one is insane. Cosmotronic Wave. Cosmotronic Wave deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. Creatures your opponents control can't block this turn. So you just, every turn, there's no more blocking. I just attack with my full team and I get
mm,
all of that damage in for free.
I think that would be the risk though, is that you could roll into something too. But yeah, this is
You know what? I think that's the way to play it. Is you would want to do it with like a big deck of shitty sorceries instead of, like I originally had sort of thought, like good ones, basically.
yeah. Um but yeah, I think we've talked about Paradigm longer than we talked about Immortal Jeff at this point.
Okay, the thing
Yeah.
I was thinking about was if we were to do you want 12 sides on the die? Do you want 10 sides on the die? We talked about a bunch of different ones. I like, if we were to end with a set of rules that we like the.
I think I'd want a 12-sided die.
Mhm.
First 3 are blank, and 12 is roll again, repick.
Everyone gets to pick a deck after the roll, after
Yeah,
seeing the roll.
with
Okay.
your kind of winner gets to fill 2, maybe 2 or all 3 of the blank sides with their with their preferred format.
With their preferred format. Okay. Yeah, so I have Immortal Jeff, Chess Clock, Treasure Vault with Mana Rocks, Treasure Vault with Swords, Plane Chase, Bounties, Two-Headed Giant, Hithlane Rope, Wondrous Wand, the Monarch, Immortal Takasia, the Initiative. I don't know which one of these. I kind of like Bounties. I think I would want to pull Bounties off, to be honest.
Yeah. Did you have Paradigm
Uh,
on that list as well? Because like I
Oh,
think
yeah, I'm sorry. Let me Paradigm.
yeah
We've talked about Paradigm enough. It's on the list, okay?
yeah I think this version where it's like shitty Paradigm is maybe what we call it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah. I think Shitty Paradigm would actually be a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't think I would want Immortal Takasia. Um, I don't think I would want Bounties. I do think I would want Plane Chase, but obviously we would have to buy the Plane Chase cards. I think Plane Chase would honestly probably end up being my favorite, and the one I would do Plane Chase every time, just because I had a lot of fun playing Plane Chase back in the day, and we were not doing Commander Plane Chase, but I think Commander Plane Chase is really sweet, and it also allows you to do some really sweet stuff. You know what I mean? Like the idea that you're going to plane chase and, oh, I'm gonna pick all the Kamigawa locations for Yuriko because she's a ninja.
makes sense.
Yeah. So I also like Chess Clock. I have the 2 treasure vaults, Two-Headed Giant. I have 1 space for an extra one that is Bounties, Takasia, Initiative, Monarch, Wondrous Wand, Hithlane Rope. Which one of those do you think would be the most fun to put in?
Hmm.
Or hypothetically, we could also put in like dealer's choice. Like somebody could just choose.
I
I think I
think
agree with you that Hithlane rope is bad, and I would not want to do that.
yeah, I think Monarch is good because it's a lower power one, and so it doesn't feel like every one of these modes is off the rails.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I like the idea that there are a couple of these that are kind of at the bottom end. So, for instance, you have normal game, Monarch, Chess Clock, Mana Rocks. Then you do Treasure Vault Swords. Then you do Plane Chase is actually probably the most intense. Actually, so I would move that down. We do Two-Headed Giant. Two-Headed Giant is also kind of normal, actually. So I'm trying to list these in order of complexity. So as the die roll gets
Yeah,
higher, it
yeah.
gets more crazy. Is essentially how I would sort of order these. I'm sorry, I'm not doing this in a visual way. I'm just doing this on a notepad
Yeah.
on my screen. Do you think that Treasure Vault Swords is more or less complex than Jeff? Jeff has got to be like one of the most complex,
Yeah,
right?
Jeff is. I think shitty paradigm is maybe 11, but I think Immortal Jeff is 10. It depends on what version of Immortal Jeff we go with. Um, if we go with like Jeff sits on Jeff, if Jeff sits on the table and also flips himself, I think that's 10. Like you can play Jeff cards out from under Jeff. I think that's the right way to go. I think that's like kind of the happy medium. Um,
Okay. So the final version of this, which I will dump in the chat so that you can at least see it along with me, that I have listed out is the first three are normal games. Then you have Monarch, which is very close to normal. Chess Clock, pretty close to normal. Mana Rock's pretty close to normal. Then you get into Two-Headed Giant. Okay, a little bit out there. We're changing some core rules. Then you have Treasure Vault with the swords. So now we're getting into spicy material. And then it would be Immortal Jeff, Paradigm, Plane Chase, which obviously requires a whole extra like draft set of decks and stuff like that, and then re-roll the die, and everyone gets to pick a deck after the roll.
yeah, yeah. I the only one I'm thinking like the only one I'm thinking is maybe I'd switch out is so wait sorry let's make it where did you dump them somewhere?
Yeah, they are in the chat in the podcast voice channel. Do you know
Oh,
what I
okay.
mean?
Yeah. Right. Open chat. All right. Oh no. Oh no, buddy, you fucked the display
Oh
because
no.
can you dump it in like can you dump it in a PM to me?
Yeah. That's fine. I can take care of that. Because in the thing I like about this is that this one, I would say half of these are normal and powered, right? The three normal games, Monarch, Chess Clock, Mana Rock, Treasure Vault, all of those are low powered. Then you have ascending higher powered with Two-Headed Giant, Treasure Vault with the swords, Immortal Jeff, Paradigm, Plane Chase, and the reroll. Those are like higher powered or more, more intense.
The only one that gives me pause here is Two-Headed Giant just because it's like um you know what I actually like I like it. We just have to figure out how to play it with an odd number of people.
I think the way that you would do it is if it was an odd number of people. I don't think we really ever play less than four, right? But if there were five people, you would have one person who gets to do two decks. And maybe you would say like the person who rolled the die or like the last winner or something would be able to play
Hmm,
two of their own decks.
yeah. I would say either the winner or like is playing two decks by yourself good or bad?
It's a good question. I guess I would say it's good, right?
Yeah. I would say like
Couldn't you play the most complementary deck to yourself?
yeah, I guess that's true. Um
Yeah.
oh, you know what? Yeah, because if you're playing 5 then the odd man out gets to pick his second deck cuz he wouldn't have pre-selected his deck. Right? Like
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so you could pick everybody else would pre-select a deck. So that person would be the most advantageous that would have the most advantageous slot. So you'd maybe say the loser. The
Yeah.
first person out in the previous game would get to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
The
we just got to get the
other
pod to buy into this.
yeah, exactly. The other game mode that I just thought of 10 seconds ago, which is crazy, would be what if you did like Paradigm but for planeswalkers? and you had a deck of planeswalkers, just generic planeswalkers, and you would maybe do 4 or 5 mana, but you could only have one at a time, is the thing. So it wouldn't be paradigm in the sense that like you could just keep
Or
re-rolling on the paradigm deck and stack up a bunch of paradigms, but you could at 4 mana buy a random planeswalker off the top of the planeswalker deck, and you can't buy another one until yours dies. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, so it's like Treasure Vault but with planeswalkers more.
Yeah, I guess it's like Treasure Vault, but with planeswalkers. I don't know. I was just that's a little. We would have to like sit and think about that even more. But planeswalkers are also interesting because like they create all these dynamics around like, you know, attacking into people's planeswalkers, and when you have planeswalkers that aren't synergistic to your game plan, what happens? But then there are also planeswalkers generically powerful, like the original 3 mana Jace just becomes a little draw engine for you. That's nice. You know what I mean? Like you just draw a lot of cards. Cool, great, right? Um. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, like this is a cool thing to have too, because like if we get bored of any of these, right? If we decide that, Treasure Vault Swords just isn't really doing it for us, we could swap it out for like Molecule Man or Wild Evocation
yeah.
or Planeswalker, Treasure Vault Planeswalkers type deal, right? Like um yeah. Yeah, I think I think this is a neat
Well, I
idea.
guess that's our list. So
Yeah.
for the gamers who play Commander with us regularly, I hope you guys are ready to roll this D12, I guess.
Uh
Because it's happening. The next time that we play Magic, the only question is how are we going to get a bunch of plane chase cards, I guess.
yeah. Um, so speaking of recently played games with the pods, how do you feel about we uh listening to the Magic Mirror podcast, we decided to try the um essentially it's I'm gonna call it scry down, maybe. It's if you're not first, you get to scry your turn order -1. So second player gets to scry 1, third player gets to scry 2, fourth player gets to scry 3. How did you feel about that?
I don't care, to be honest. I thought it was so minor. I was never last. I never got the big Scry 3, which feels like it would be the best place to be in. But I honestly kind of thought that it just sort of didn't matter very much to me personally.
Yeah, I thought it was neat, but I also thought that like I enjoyed it, but I also didn't know if it was that impactful,
Yeah.
frankly.
The thing that I'm thinking about is so I watched a video recently that I said I was going to send to you last fucking forgot. Basically, the designer, one of the like the lead designers of Rumbleverse, who's a longtime fighting game community guy, talked about his philosophy towards balance, and you know, he talks a lot about like you can't balance to the spreadsheet. I actually wrote a devlog for this for Montabi recently. That's kind of close to a line with this, where it's like if you wanted to throw all of your numbers into a spreadsheet, you could, and you could create mathematical balance that way by just like balancing for whatever. So like in Hearthstone terms or something, this would be like win rate, right? You just go, oh well, I want certain decks to win, certain decks to whatever. You can just balance that way if you want, kind of thing. But game designers don't actually want to do this because like balance is a tool for fun, like engagement, right? To get people like interested and on board for things. And if you balance everybody to exactly mathematically 50% win rates or whatever, right? Like you only nerf characters that are underperforming, you only buff characters or that are overperforming, you only buff characters that are underperforming, that kind of thing, with a goal of 50% win rate. You will just end up stripping like the unique fun out of all of your characters, creating a bunch of homogenous kind of like crap, all of the rest of it, which is pretty intuitive. I think most people sort of like get that. And this feels a little bit like that to me, right? Like we understand that there is this number, which is that first position in a commander game wins 25% of the time, or 35% of the time, and last position wins about 15% of the time. So there's a pretty significant advantage to going first in commander mathematically. But I don't actually know that I feel that in any of our games personally. Even if I actually do think technically it was first position that won a number of times yesterday. We played 5 games yesterday. Yuna was a first game win, and my Quintorius was a first turn win, but the other ones were not. But, like, how often are we playing at a level where I'm thinking to myself, "Wow, I can't believe Josh got to go first." It's the fact that he got to go first that won him the game. No, he got to win with that Unigame because on turn 1, he soul ringed, on turn 2, he played ramp, on turn 3, he played ramp, on turn 4, he played ramp, and then he cast Bahamut. No, I was on turn 4, he played the Bahamut. So on turn 4, he cast a 9 mana spell. And it's just like, yes, when you get to 14 mana on turn 2 because you hit 4 pieces of ramp in a row, you just have an explosive win, and you could have done that from behind, and like it wouldn't have mattered. Do you know what I mean? And I just sort of think that maybe we're not playing the decks where any of this stuff fucking like figures at all.
I think I might try and start writing down like who wins out of what position with what deck, and maybe some notes about
Yeah.
how they won. Because I would be interested in looking at that kind of stuff. There's a part of me that's like, do I want to start doing this to try and like make myself a better player? Because I have like, you know, I have noticed things at the table, and like a like I notice things about other players. I don't know if I notice them as much about myself, just because I don't know if I'm as reflective. But like, something that comes to my mind quite a bit is I don't think Frank plays aggressive enough. Which is what, and I think
Mhm.
he ends up like losing because he plays too defensive, and he like doesn't take the initiative um when he
I understand. Yeah, you play to not lose versus play to win.
exactly, right. And
Yeah.
sometimes he wins, and so I'm not saying that like, uh I think he's better or anything, but like that's the thing I noticed about Frank is he tends to play very conservatively, right? Out of the game until he like knows he has a thing to do.
Yeah, I
It's
actually think he would have won on that Solfim game at the very end if he had left you and me alive. I think that if I'm playing Solfim there, I realize that, I'm there on Eureka. I need low life totals to burn people out. So all I do is I set up a situation where as soon as Buddy connects with his ninjas, burns even just a couple of points, like the differential there for Frank was 5 life. If Frank, I actually think it was technically 1 life. I think he could have dealt 1 additional damage if Josh had lost 1 additional life, he would have lost the game to Frank there. And so what Frank needed to do was not burn you and I out of the game and just trust that I wasn't going to be able to kill him or really anybody else. Let that wave of damage go through, probably kill you on like my end step or something so that he immediately snaps to his turn and then uses that momentum to kill Josh, right? Which would have been a kind of off the wall but very aggressive play that would have been a game-winning play in my mind, right? So this is probably addressing what you're thinking about.
yeah, no, and I have
Yeah.
like there are the things I specifically think about are there are moments when like he could like swing out with things and he just doesn't because he like the thing that um kind of popped into my head is when he was playing Omnath and he didn't crack the
Oh, the
myriad
myriad landscape.
landscape
Yeah,
because he wanted to save it.
1000%.
I was like, no, you fucking take the ramp, right? Like,
Yeah.
who cares, right? If you miss the landfall triggers type of deal. Uh
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking too. Not to pick on Frank too
right.
much, because I do think everybody has these kinds
Oh
of,
yeah.
like these kinds of plays and these kinds of moments. I think you and I did that when we were just there was one game where we were just like it was just kind of 1v1 between you and me. Like I think if I had played that game better, I maybe won or something, but I was just sort of going along with this bit that like we were fighting each other
Yeah.
more than we were fighting the rest of the table. Um yeah. I think
Yeah.
Josh also uses his removal in ways that I would consider inadvantageous. I think a lot of people have these kinds of like, I don't know, flaws.
Yeah. Like I know I have like sometimes I don't read my cards close stuff. I also think that like something I need to get better at is like I think I dump my hand a little too aggressively. Where like I need to play to like an eventual board wipe that I just never do. Like I've had a number of games where I've had like substantial board states. I've been a great place, and then someone drops a board wipe, and I just can't recover from it.
Yeah.
Because I don't have enough cards in hand. I don't have an engine to come back. But I would like to like write some of these things down so that I can like learn what's working and what's not working. Right? Like think about like part of it too is that like I realize that I am not great at keeping track of basically the board states of the person that isn't across. It depends, but like I usually end up focusing on like one or two people and like missing one or two people, right? Like I don't think I clocked that Josh had ramped so aggressively because he was catty corner to me, right? Like he's like the person that's like
Mhm.
farthest from my thought space, and like maybe I should have played. He had a really good hand. I don't know if I would have been able to do anything, but that was like the thought in my head, right? Is like I didn't follow what he was doing close enough to know that he was popping off and properly identify him. Like ideally, I think I would identify the beatdown as they're becoming the beatdown instead of after they are obviously the beatdown, because at that point it's a little bit hard to deal with.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I feel like I've definitely been in that situation about 100,000 times. I think naturally, I complain to this to Rachel all the time, where I think that I draw sort of natural aggro. My theory is that it is because of the way that I play, like not so much the actual sort of cards, but I think that just my sort of almost like demeanor or something. Like it kind of has nothing to do with the cards. It just has to do with like playstyle in general of sort of a direct um like a direct playstyle kind of makes me feel more of a threat than I am. Because there are some places where I am just like, I am the worst person at this table, and people will be like, Buddy's the threat. You know what I mean? Like that Takesha game, I missed my third, fourth, and fifth land. I was 3 lands behind. Like there was no version of things where I was gonna really be anything kind of dangerous in that game. But I definitely attracted a lot of aggro for like, somebody who missed 3 out of 7, 6 or 7 land drops or whatever it was at the time.
Yeah, I wonder how much like things I think about at the table are like occasionally I will miss a Josh play because basically Josh hasn't totally explained like sometimes he'll explain his cards and sometimes he'll just be like, and here's a card and not explain it, and then like a turn later he'll like turn that into like a giant combo and be like, oh, that was the
I've
thing.
gotten legitimately pissed about this with Josh before. Because like there was a time, like I don't know, there was one time where we were playing in my house, and I had a piece of removal, and I was sitting and watching his board state, ready to use it in order to like disrupt the power that he was sort of assembling. But I kind of got lost in the sauce a little bit, and by the time I tried to use the removal, he had played a defensive piece that I had just kind of missed, and I was like, God fucking damn it. You know what I mean? Like I could have reacted. I could have responded. I would have put a swords to plowshares on the stack at the appropriate point to get past some of this stuff. But like because now we're 6 plays later down the line, like winding all the way back. And I think at that time you know what, fucking whatever, who cares? Let's just play another one kind of thing. But I have had that situation happen with Josh. I actually think Josh kind of has routinely kind of the most straightforwardly powerful decks in most situations where like if you just kind of let Josh play solitaire, his deck is going to assemble the most powerful raw engine kind of most of the time is what I
Yeah,
would say.
I think that's right. I think Josh plays like I think Josh also plays a lot of like bide until I hit like a win combo decks, right? Which is just kind of like
Mhm.
I think that's like a powerful kind of archetype in most pods just because it's kind of like you don't appear to be a threat until you've won. Um which is this is actually a thing that like like distraction makers would talk about at times where it's kind of like, you know, play kind of like the back foot um game until like you're at a point where you can win in one fell swoop. Like that is kind of like a
Yep.
dominant strategy. And like this again is not casting judgment, it's just kind of like that's just kind of like the decks that I think Josh tends to like. um except for his dinosaurs decks, which are all big, right? Like it's like the dinosaurs decks are very obvious what they're doing. But some of that's also just kind of like interrupter scary, man. uh
That deck is insane. I don't know. When last lap was off, that was like, holy fucking shit. I thought I was doing really well that game, right? With Taval. Uh but boy, Indoraptor. Whew.
yeah.
Whoo-wee.
uh well,
Well, I'm excited to see what games look like when we start rolling the chaos die because
yeah.
I think that that's gonna be, I think that that's gonna be sweet. I guess what is it? 20% of the no, hold on. What would the ratio be? 3 out of 12 is 25% of the time you're playing normal games, and then and half of the time you're sort of playing crazy games. That's a good ratio. I'd say that's a
Yeah,
good rate.
the issue is if we do the win selects the normal games faces, then you kind of cut those out, which I think is um like I think that like you got like I feel like first game is a normal game, next two are like no modifications, and then like whoever's won the most games on the day gets to replace the normal faces for like the last game of the night or something like that. Uh
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I was thinking that because the first game of the day is always a normal kind of determine a winner, right? And then everything after that is that but you're right that hypothetically speaking, because then what you do is you have somebody who just rolls paradigm, 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 right? And now all of a sudden you've cut out that normal game kind of bottom end. But
yeah.
in a certain sense, I kind of like that. I don't know. Part of this I also think is just going to be how I'm wired. I love this kind of stuff because, frankly, I think it makes me enjoy the game more and this is counterintuitive, but when I lose to kind of wild bullshit, I kind of think that's cool more than I think that that's like lame. Like I don't really feel like somebody stole a win. Like let's say you paradigm into just like a really strong. You're playing a recursion deck and you paradigm into zombify, and now every single turn you're fucking zombifying, and you use that and take over the game. Like I am more prone to celebrate somebody else's cool play for the win, kind of like what happened with Josh and Interrep. Than I am to kind of get butthurt that like RNG kind of like fucked me. Because it feels weirdly better to lose to RNG bullshit than to like lose on my on the face of it. Do you know what I mean? Like I can't help that somebody got a sweet paradigm, but if I'm playing a normal game and I lose, that stings more because there was less RNG bullshit that I could kind of like blame the loss on.
I'm kind of sensitive to weirdness fatigue, which is like
Yeah.
if you do the weird thing too often, it stops being special and it starts being like, like let's say, I win the first commander game and I just do Immortal Jeff for the rest of the night, right? Like that's like fun for the first game, okay for the second game, and probably a pain in the ass for like the third and the fourth games, right? Like
Yeah.
um
Yeah, part of my thinking is that actually any one of these individual game types would be pretty rare. Like if you think about it, the last time we played at your house, we played 4 games. Last night we played 5. So in the last 2 times that we played Magic, which were big full day Magic playing sessions, we played 9 total games. Well, we would have shaved 2 of those off, so we would have played 7 total, right, that are using the die. So half of the list we probably wouldn't touch. That's pretty
yeah.
reasonable. I
Yeah.
think I would be okay with an addendum rule that says something like you can't roll 2 the same in a night. Like if you roll Immortal Jeff with Immortal Jeff, it's just right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say like I feel like actually I think the better rule is if you win your own choice, then they revert to normal faces for the next roll.
Yeah. Or actually, I think maybe I would like re-rolls better than normal faces. I think
I,
playing a normal game and then playing a weird game and then going back to a normal game, I would personally dislike. But maybe I'm wired differently than that. I
yeah,
feel like I would want to play the cool wild stuff later, later on.
I think I don't know. There's a part of me that says that like that thinks that like you want a couple of normal games in there, like or relatively
Oh
normal
yeah.
games. Yeah, it's like you know, like yesterday. I knew I wanted to play Preston and I wanted to play Maryland at some points during the night, and I did. And I also felt like I maybe was gonna play one of them again because I didn't feel like either of them really got off the ground before those
Yeah.
games ended. And it's like if we are playing weird rules the whole night, I don't know if I ever get to a point where I get to actually like play the deck. And maybe they're the normal game like the more normal modes in here are normal enough that it's not a huge deal. But that's just kind of my instinct. Is like having the opportunity to kind of like play a normal game of Commander is a good thing. Like if someone is bringing a new deck, I tend to not run Jeff because I want the person to be able like Jeff stops you from doing your thing, right? And I want them to be able to at least like explore what they're doing with their thing. Like I won't run Jeff against a new deck because I want them to be able to play their deck in the way that it's designed.
Yeah, interesting. In a certain sense, I actually kind of want to say that the last game of the night should be the normal game rather than the first game of the night.
Oh, it's like
You know
a
what I mean?
palette
The
cleanser.
Yeah,
What?
well, if I'm thinking about weirdness fatigue, the first game when I haven't played, that's when I'm sharp, I'm rip raring, ready to go, kind of thing. But after 5 hours of playing Commander, boy, do I want to do fucking plane chase? Maybe not. And maybe I would want to. I don't know. I think this is clearly us overthinking it, to be
Yeah,
honest with you. But I
yeah,
think the other thing is we could all just kind of agree. You know what? We're gonna do last game of the night. No bullshit. Let's just do a straight up game of Commander.
yeah. Yeah. Also, like the other part of this, we have to get the rest of the pod to buy into this and I'm
Yeah.
not convinced that like I could see us trying this one day and then like rolling some bullshit and everybody stop and then like like somebody else deciding that they never want to fucking do this again, right?
Yeah, I do kind of get that. I do kind of get that a little bit. I don't know. I'm of this sort of opinion. My secret theory is that we could play one game of Plane Chase and it would be so cool that like we would just only want to play Plane Chase after that because I think Plane Chase is so sweet. But also at the same time, like my memories of Plane Chase are very nostalgic, but that was 15 fucking years
Yeah.
ago. Like, and also we were not playing Commander Plane Chase. We're just playing normal 60 card Plane Chase. It also like came with kind of pre-made decks, which we were sort of like playing out. It was sort of like a weird product. But like I could definitely see it kind of go either way. Where like maybe we play Paradigm and it's so cool and fun and people just it's such a neat way to end the game and you're rolling into these weird things and oh my god, it's so funny. I'm going lava axe every turn, just keep hitting Josh in the face, and even though Josh is the worst person to hit, it's funny and it becomes a joke or whatever, and then all of a sudden we're like, let's just keep playing this. Like we find like a fun game mode at the same time that we maybe go, you know what, the swords are a little too unwieldy, and the 3 mana to get a sword and then 2 mana to equip it just doesn't really like fit my thing. And do I even have a creature that can wear a sword effectively? Kind of no. It's like, like maybe we would just find that there are some duds in here and some bangers, and we can just kind of tune around like
Yeah.
the duds and the bangers.
There's a part of me that thinks that like maybe instead before we start rolling a die for it, we should just like play some of these formats. Like,
Just like on their face, yeah.
yeah, just
I
just
think I think any of the more advanced ones. So it would be like Treasure Vault down, I would say. Those are the ones we would have to play. Because people would
yeah.
have to kind of buy into the rule set, I would say. But like Monarch is easy, Chess Clock is kind of easy, like people would get it. I don't think there's any issue there. Even I don't know. I think I would want people to buy into Mana Rocks.
I
But
actually I think that chess clock in particular would be like I'd want to get buy-in for that just because it like warps how you like we like,
oh yeah.
it's like we're like because we were doing like an act. The point of this is not to punish long term or not to like punish people who take long turns. The point of this is to have like a game where you don't have a ton of time to think as like an alternative thing, right? Like it's like feeling out how that feels, right? Like to see if everybody's okay with that, right? I think would be an interesting thing, right? Because like the point of the chess clock game is you are like thinking ahead and acting as fast as possible when it's your turn to go, rather than um trying to uh and I think that's just like a different mindset. And like there's part of me that thinks that'd be interesting, but there's also part of me that could see that like if I'm playing one of my more intricate decks and like I'm just like fucked because I can't think through the line, like do I actually hate that or not? I would like to try that in kind of like in a controlled setting at some point, just to give it a shot.
I would too. I also think that would be very like fun and interesting, but we'll just have to play it
Yeah,
out and see.
yeah, um, yeah. Well, we've talked for an hour and 40 minutes, and we haven't even talked about our 3 weeks.
That's
Uh,
true.
you have anything in particular you wanna call out?
I've been playing a lot of Mentabi. I've been playing a lot of Stellaris. What are the games I've been playing? Mentabi, Stellaris. I've been playing a little bit of World of Warcraft since the patch came out. I don't know. My sister's wedding really got in the way of some stuff. We were playing so much Heroes of the Storm, which I don't have much to say. Heroes of the Storm is fucking fun. MOBAs are fun. Heroes of the Storm is better than League of Legends. Like all of all of this stuff that I believe. I definitely felt myself towards the end though, like getting the salt again, where like I was seeing certain heroes on the enemy team and going, fucking this guy. You know what I mean? And that's kind of when I felt like I knew I was getting to sort of the end of it. I did not accomplish my goal of beating the Diablo 4 campaign before the end of the season, which technically ends in 2 days, but I just know that I'm not gonna have enough time between today and tomorrow and to finish things out. So I guess I'll do that like next season or whatever, because I still want to have the conversation about Diablo lore. Stellaris released a new DLC that's very cool called Nomads, where you don't play an individual empire, you play on what are arc ships, which are big city ships that are neat and interesting. I actually played Stellaris before the release of the DLC, and I was playing Volcanoids, which was another DLC that had come out since I had played Stellaris last, and I was playing I can't remember what it was called. I was playing the Everflame Crusade, okay. And I was playing a crisis path where you become the crisis and you start lighting the galaxy on fire, which was awesome. Which was a lot of fun. I had a great time. You just start running around the galaxy, turning every star into a red giant, and then you have to go into the galactic core and set 6 specific stars to red giants to win the game by setting the whole galaxy on fire, which I was like, this is sweet, this is awesome. And I basically just had like the greatest. And anyway, and then I've just been playing Mintabi. um so we announced our release date, which is on August 6th, and I now have a gold version of the game that has true progression. I played a lot of Mintabi, but I had never actually gone through and like leveled up all of the guys and played with all the different, sort of things or whatever. And it's just as addicting as Estrella, to be honest. I actually think I like it more than Estrella, maybe. It's very complex because you have three. In Estrella, you have your one deck of dice, right? In Matabi, you have your trainer, which is always on, right? And then you have two threes. So you can also get a third Matabi on the field if you want. You have two Matabi that are on the field with you at all times. And the synergies are just so cool and so fun to sort of like to play with. I love this fucking game, man. So I don't know. That's the speed run. That's the speed run of all of this.
Yeah. So on my end, I've been playing a bunch of Marathon. Still been super enjoying it. I have not successfully extracted from Cryo this season yet, which I think says more about me than anything else. Um, but I've been enjoying this kind of like basically. It's interesting because they released a sponsored survival kit mode, which is or a survival mode, which is like you have to bring a sponsored kit in, and you can only extract at the very end of the match. There's like a final exfil. And it's supposed to be PvP light because you can get rooks in, but the reality is that the rooks never bother queuing up for it. Like just because it's a rooks versus a team, right? And it's just not like practical to actually defeat the team. And so since no one queues up for it, you can actually queue into it solo and with a sponsor kit and just kind of like, you know, uh, you know, run around in kind of the same way that like you could do with Arc Raiders. Um, and it's a little bit different because technically there is the danger and also like it's harder to deal with the enemies in like the enemies in Arc are very deadly, but also relatively easy to play around. A little bit harder to do in marathon, but like it has that kind of like when I just feel like not dealing with people, I will just load into a sponsored mode and exfil some trash and be happy with myself. Um, but I'm very much enjoying that. I beat Titanium Court after. I don't want to spoil too much about it, but I like these games all have like 72,000 kind of like um different ways that you can like interact with the system. And so I did some googling around about it, and I don't want to spoil too much, but I think but like basically the thing I will say is that the creator said he wants you to play the game once, get what you get out of it, and leave. And there's like some stuff in here that kind of pushes you towards not doing everything in the game. And I think that's very interesting. I thought it was a very cool game. I'm happy with my experience with it. And I'm respecting the author's wishes, and I have uninstalled the game post beating it once. Getting an ending that I was satisfied with. So I highly recommend Titanium Court to everybody. It is currently my front runner for Games as Art of the Year. It's still first half of the year, so who knows? But it's there. As a result of that, I have moved and I've basically stopped playing WoW for the moment. Um, just because there's not a lot I want to do, and I've started doing like weird hunt achievements to get like decor for my house that I never actually touch. So it's kind of like at that point, it's like, maybe I'll step back for a second. But in response, I have installed Control. Since they announced the sequel to Control during the Keeley
Yeah, this is
Summerfest.
the 0451 game that I never played, but that everybody really likes.
Uh,
You know what I'm talking about? 0451's immersive sims like Deus Ex.
yeah. I don't know if I'd call it immersive sim. It's kind of like, at least so far, it's like a relatively linear shooter, honestly. But it's got a bunch of like SCP Foundation style, like it's basically in the SCP Foundation. Um,
Okay.
uh, and it's more for me. The interesting stuff is like the weird kind of paranatural stuff rather than like the actual gameplay, which is okay. Um, for the time being. And then I restarted Cyberpunk, and installed a bunch of mods and am doing a new run on that just because. Basically, I saw that The Witcher 3 was getting a DLC. And I was like, maybe I should play The Witcher. And it's like, wait, I should wait for the DLC to play The Witcher. It's like, I'll play Cyberpunk, right? Like, um, because I never actually finished it. I got like 50 hours into my last playthrough and kind of fell off. And I'm still in the kind of like, you I mean, spoilers for an ancient game at this point, but I'm still at the point in the story where Jackie is alive, and so I'm still going through these opening quests again. Um, and that does make me a little tired, just because like I have done the fucking get the flathead robot quest. It feels like a dozen times at this point, and I don't need to do it anymore. But my added like because I've played this opening segment too much, my attitude has suddenly become, instead of playing obsessively completionist like I usually do with these games, right? Like, figure out all the little things you can do. I'm just going to kind of let the chips fall as they will, and like let the plot, like the different missions, resolve as they kind of do. Um, Plus I installed some mods that give add a bunch of interesting new kind of functionality to stuff. So, um, like there's expanded cyberware and rewards for being silent, that kind of thing. So, um, I've been dicking around with that, and then yeah, every once in a while, I look at Deadlock on my games list and think maybe I'll play a game of Deadlock, and I haven't yet. So, if you want to play another MOBA and want to jump into something new, I'd be willing to play some Deadlock.
Yeah. The games that I've been thinking about playing have actually been Ghost of Tsushima and Assassin's Creed Shadows, which comes out of nothing in particular. They've been sitting on my wish list for a long time and I haven't bought them, but I just get the notification once in a while that they're on sale. And neither one of these has ever gone on sale enough that I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pull the trigger and get the $35 version of it rather than there's like no version where I'm gonna pay the $60 for it, but maybe I'll buy it for $30 and kind of like have a good time. I don't really even know why, to be honest with you. It's just like those are the games that pop up on my wish list emails and make me want to buy. There's some games on my wish list. I mean, I don't know what does your wish list look like? There's some games on my wish list that I'm just like I have it and I am never in a million years actually going to buy this, to buy this game. Like I have a bunch of stuff like I have a bunch of like indie games, like big indies that I just like never actually played. Kerbal Space Program, Starbound, Terraria, RimWorld, right? Like I think of these as like, games that I ought to play sort of thing. But I never end up, just getting the impulse to do it. There's a bunch in here like Injustice 2 is on sale right now for 90% off. I can buy this game for $4.99. No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
Um, so
yeah, no, I definitely feel that. Like, I've got games that I put on here at some point that I am probably never going to actually get. Like, I'm looking at it now. I'm like actively pulling stuff off. Like Stardeus. I don't even know what this fucking. Oh, maybe I do know what this is. Or
yeah.
like Lords of the Fallen. Like, maybe I would have done it, but I'm not going to do it now. Um, uh, Mouse PI for Hire. I put it on a month ago when it came out because it looked interesting, but I'm never actually going to buy that type of deal.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel that uh that issue where like it's like I've got so many games on here that I put on because they looked interesting at the time, but I'm probably never actually going to play half of these games. Um,
Dune Spice Wars is one of the ones that's on my wish list. This is the Dune 4X game. I actually do think I want to play this one. Looking back at the trailer, fuck yeah, buddy. Give me that Leto Atreides. Ah,
so speaking of games that the trailers have sold me on, for a game that comes out in late August this year, Star Wars Zero Company has caught my attention, which is like Star Wars XCOM as best I can tell. Uh, so that is the game that I am excited for coming out. It, excuse me, is Star Wars Zero Company, just because Star Wars XCOM is like straight into my veins. I want this. Uh
oh, Clone Troopers. Let's go. Yeah. So, do you know when it takes place? Is it during the Clone Wars? It's got to
um
be, right? Oh yeah,
Twilight of the
set in
Clone
the
Wars.
twilight
Twilight
of
of
the
the Clone
Clone
Wars.
Wars. Yeah, I played a game of this called XCOM. Did you ever see the XCOM or not XCOM? The Gears of War version of it. Can't remember what it's called, but there was a Gears of War XCOM that came out that was incredible. I loved this game. Um, the fact that Zero Company is set during the Clone Wars actually like is the greatest. This makes me a deeply happy camper.
Yeah. Uh and there's just like I don't know. Basically I watched it, I was like, this is great, and also made me want to play fucking Star Wars Fantasy Flight again. Uh
Listen, we talked about it a little bit. I was thinking playing Star Wars Fantasy Flight for the winter game because I've already announced that I kind of want to just play in the winter game. I don't want to DM, just because I've been DMing two games. Frankly, two games a week for a year and a half is quite a lot. And I was like, boy, how sweet would it be to get back into Star Wars Fantasy Fight for just a couple of months? I could play. My guy wasn't named Alpha.
it was
Alpha
named
is the
Omega.
clone. Omega, yes, exactly. But I named him before the fucking Clone Wars. Okay. Uh,
I don't think
my
you named it
default.
before. You named it before. I don't think you named it before the show existed.
No. Well, so he is a reference to a character that I played in the very, very first. Have I ever told you this backstory? That in when
Oh,
I was in high school, I
yeah.
played the Star Wars D20 RPG, and I played a character that was an ARC trooper who was based off of the original Clone Wars. Because in the original Clone Wars, the Gendy Tartakovsky Clone Wars, there's a bit with the ARC troopers that is just so cool. And I made a character whom I called Omega because I thought that was sweet. And anyway, my Star Wars Fantasy Flight character that we played was a callback to that
Yeah.
version of the character, obviously updated with frankly much better and more reasonable lore. Um, because
Yeah.
I was in high school, but I love the idea of playing Star Wars Fantasy Flight this winter.
I would say, and like, get away with it because, it's Omega. But she says it with a fucking New Zealand accent. And also, like, I was thinking about this. There's no way all of the clone troopers know each other's fucking nicknames, right? Like, because
Mm.
they introduce each other. It's like, like, except for the ones that are like, oh, my name, my, number is 5555, so I'm fives, right? Like, there's got to be like two clone troopers who had the same nickname. It's like, well, I guess we're, fucking,
Yeah, the backstory for my character was and it was because we were playing during the Yuzan Vong era. Vong.
yeah. I mean, well, the Yuzhan Vong era is old lore, but like way, it's like, post, it's way in the future. Uh,
Yeah. It is like it was like 100 or something years in the future or whatever. So my character Omega was like not like a failed clone, but like a I'm thinking the word contraband, but it's like wrong. Like illicit, like an illegal sort of clone. The backstory that I had come up with at the time was this idea that like clone troopers from the Clone Wars became like a valuable piece of sort of intellectual property on like the black market. And so people would kind of print their own clones in underground sort of facilities or whatever. And my character Omega was one of the who was the last of a line of sort of illegal clones who were put through a version of sort of the program, which doesn't make really any sense at all if you think about it in terms of the timeline or the way that it works or any of that stuff. But that was his backstory, and I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun playing Omega back then.
Yeah, I need to double check the lore. I know that like the clones are supposed to age up super fast, but like I also don't know how fast it happens or if any of them survive past or like, if they figure out how to change any of that type of deal.
Yeah, this was the game where we did. Have I ever told you about the global 9/11, which was very insensitive at the time because this was, I think, 2 or 3 years after 9/11 actually happened, and people we knew died in 9/11. But the idea was, again, kind of cringily. The character we were fighting was Darth Lavong, who was actually a droid, which we had found out he did not have the force, but he had these magnets. He kind of had magneto powers with magnets, basically. But everybody thought he was human, and we were trying to expose him or whatever. And he was besieging Coruscant just like General fucking Grievous would. But this was actually before. Frankly, this was before Revenge of the Sith came out. He was besieging Coruscant, and we killed Darth Lavong by dropping him in an elevator shaft. And when he died, it was kind of like the Night King in Game of Thrones, where all of the droids in this giant droid army sort of turned off. And all of the Star Destroyers that were holding the droids also turned off, and they globally 9/11'd Coruscant, and Coruscant became like a complete ruin because just gigantic capital ships were crashing into it. And that was wild. That was time.
It's like a quadrillion people dead.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
it's not a.
yep.
I think quadrillion's the population of the
The funny
galaxy,
thing is
not
that
of
we had
Coruscant.
worked really, really to save. I think it was 1,000 Keldor. Um, Darth Lavong had genocided like the planet of Keldor and the Keldorians or whatever they're called. And we evacuated 1,000 of them onto one of the Star Destroyers. And I'm pretty sure that Star Destroyer crashed into the planet and they died too. Because one of the key pieces of here is we hijacked a Star Destroyer, which was very cool. And maybe one of like the great, sort of cinematic D&D fights of my career was us. We had a ship like the Millennium Falcon. We essentially drove it into the bridge of the Star Destroyer. Everybody got vented out into space. We did a bunch of stuff in spaceships, or in spacesuits or whatever, and we took over this whole Star Destroyer by like reprogramming robots or whatever. Anyway, this is all deep lore from my past, I guess.
What was the DM's plan? Just like,
The
and then
DM was a friend of mine whose name was Jake Vogt. He wasn't very good at DMing. It was all very off the cuff about this stuff, but the I think it was basically all improv, to be honest with you. Like the idea that we were going to hijack the Star Destroyer was because
the Star Destroyer. I mean, like you killing the villain and it causing essentially like a global 9/11, like the way you put it,
yeah.
right? Like was that like always the plan, or was
No,
like
absolutely not. That was simply not the plan. And this is if you've ever heard the story of a friend of mine who cut the elevator cables and killed the big bad at an inopportune time, but the DM rolled with it. That's what this was.
okay.
We were running through Coruscant. We were doing something. We was in the middle of this whole attack, And then we opened up an elevator door, and Darth Levong was there. Okay, and Darth Levong had kicked our asses a couple of times. He was true, like, BBEG material, right? And Jake later told us that the only reason he put Darth Levong in that elevator was because of the like oh shit moment. It's like he compared it to in Empire Strikes Back when he opens the door and Darth Vader's there in
Yeah.
Cloud City, right? Um, we were all freaking out because we saw Darth Levong there. We had this thing. It was a vial of something we were like, looking for, and a friend of mine, my friend Zeev, who was not a normal, but we had convinced to come and play that game, and he was playing like a Jedi apprentice that we like picked up or whatever. He said he was first in initiative, and he said, "I cut the cables," and we were like, "What?" He was like, "It's an elevator, right? And I have a lightsaber. I can just cut the cables. Can I do that? Can I cut the cables?" And Jake was like, "Yeah, sure, I guess." And Steve like rolled, and he rolled pretty high. And so Jake was like, "Okay, yeah, you cut the cables." And Darth Levong just starts falling in this elevator. It crashes and explodes, and he's dead now. And then he then described the first of these Star Destroyers like entering sort of like low orbit because they had all been like deactivated and disabled or whatever. It was all improv. It was
Yeah.
all, but it was sweet, I guess.
You know how you can tell how much of a nerd I am is I'm immediately thinking that like real elevator systems have emergency brakes so that they don't crash to the fucking ground when the
Yeah,
cables.
this was the other thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is that Jake said that there were not elevator cables because it's the sci-fi future. So actually, Zeev needed to cut his lightsabers low because it had anti-grav repulsors, and so he cut into the anti-grav repulsors with a swipe of his lightsaber. And I remember thinking at the time, it took Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon a long time to like cut through the door in Phantom Menace. Like you would not just be able to go boom and like swipe through all that much sort of like metal. But obviously, I'm not going to bring that up and be like the guy who sort of tells the teacher there's homework, that they
Yeah.
forgot to,
So again, knowing that this is kind of like being the asshole about it, right? It's like I would not have trouble believing that you could disable an elevator easily with like by swiping like that with the lightsaber. The problem I would have is that then causes the elevator to catastrophically crash to the bottom floor in a modern city, right?
yeah.
Like obviously I am a third person who has had now like 5 minutes to think of this, right? Like eh, backseat DMing here is the way I like the way I'm thinking that you would do it is like it's like yes the elevator falls but the emergency system is kick in and it like, 4 floors down, it like, screeches to a halt. So you've got time to get away, right? But like you don't kill the villain there, right? Like
Yeah.
go back in
Well,
time, tell your
yeah,
friend that
yeah, I'm going to go back to 2004, which I think when this was, which I guess would have even been before Attack of the Clones came out. Now that I think about it, it must have been like
yeah,
2005 or 2006. There's no way it was before Attack of the Clones. But it was definitely before Revenge of the Sith. No, wait, hold on. It was 2004 because Revenge of the Sith was 2005. Attack of the Clones was 2002. So 2004 was right. Yeah, I would have been a freshman in high school. I think is also correct because I think this was the fall that I had moved to Maplewood. Um, yeah, the other part of this is like multiple characters died. This was actually maybe the only campaign where serious character death has occurred for me. Very rare, I feel like, to find very serious kind of character death in other campaigns. But my original character, who was a Jedi, died, and Max's original character, who was a Bothan tech specialist is what they were called, and we were best friends, of course, because we were best friends in real life, and you do that when you're playing D&D. And then he
especially
rolled
when you're
this
in
new
high school.
character who's like a Zabrak whatever, like a Zabrak rogue or something, and he showed up on the scene, and I was like, oh my god, my best friend just died. Are you looking for a friend? He goes, yes. And then me and that new character became best friends. Anyway, wild, crazy times.
Is there a reason you're waving around your passport? You planning on like fleeing the country in the next 12 hours?
No, I'm sorry. I have my passport out because I had to buy some plane tickets recently, and I just have it. Um, and I'm just fidgeting with it, I guess. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know.
I'm just like watching be like, don't open it to the page with the information on it.
Yeah, with like the number on
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna scrape it and steal
Look,
my identity, I'm sure.
the like, security part of my brain is just like, ah, ah right, like, but yeah, yeah. Well, anything else you want to talk about, or should we wrap this up?
I don't know. We can wrap it up. I got nothing else going on.
All right. Well, if you'd like to email us about anything you talked about in this podcast, you can email us at derpsgames@gmail.com or podcast@derpsgames.com. You can use it Games, or rather, I already said that. Rate and review us on iTunes, wherever you find podcasts. Follow us. Links will be down in the description. Bud, you have anything else you're looking to promote?
Montabi's coming out on August 6th. That's the big thing that we announced in SGF, which I alluded to on last time's podcast. Also, if you catch this in the next 10 hours, both Montabi and Echo Weaver are in Steam Next Fest with updated demos. So I would recommend giving those a shot.
Nice. And I don't have anything. So with that, I'm going to say until next time, dear listeners.
Until next time, loyal listeners.